The wire transfer clears on a Tuesday morning at 9:47 a.m., and you're standing in your kitchen holding a mug of coffee that's gone lukewarm because you've been staring at your phone for the better part of 10 minutes, watching a number change from something ordinary into something that no longer feels like it belongs to the same life you were living an hour ago. $4.3 million. The acquisition of the small logistics software company you built with two other people over 6 years. Sold to a much larger firm that wanted your client relationships more than your code. You don't call anyone. You don't pour a drink, even though it's still morning, and that wouldn't have made sense anyway. You set the phone face down on the counter, and you finish the coffee, cold as it is, because some part of you already understands that the next thing you do matters more than anything you've done up to this point. And you want to do it with a clear head. By that afternoon, you've made 3 phone calls, and none of them are to your family. The first call is to a lawyer in a different state, one who specializes in asset structuring. Referred to you not by a friend, but by a friend of a friend, 3 degrees removed from your actual life, which is exactly the point. You didn't want someone who'd run into your cousin at a barbecue and mention offhand that you'd called about setting up trusts. The lawyer's name is Whitfield, and he doesn't ask why you're doing this. He's had this exact conversation with enough people to know the reasons are always some version of the same reason. He walks you through the mechanics in a voice that's almost bored, the way a surgeon might describe a routine procedure they've performed 400 times. You're going to move the money into a series of structures, an LLC here, a trust there, spread across 2 states with favorable asset protection laws. None of it illegal. All of it designed for exactly one purpose: making the number invisible to anyone who might come looking for it, including, eventually, people you currently love. The second call is to move your primary bank account, the one your family and old coworkers would recognize, to a new institution entirely, a private bank that doesn't show up in a Google search with your name attached to any public filing. The old account stays open. It still gets your paycheck, back when you had one, and it still pays your regular bills, the ones your ex-wife and your parents and your 2 remaining close friends would expect to see if they ever looked, which they won't, because nobody audits the visible parts of someone's life once those parts look unremarkable. The visible account will hold $40,000, maybe $60,000, enough to look like someone doing fine, comfortable, not rich. The real money moves somewhere your name doesn't appear on the first 3 pages of any document. The third call is the hardest one, though it doesn't feel hard in the moment. It's to yourself, in a sense, a decision rather than a conversation. You're not telling your parents, not this year, maybe not ever, not the real number. You'll tell them you did well on the sale, well enough to take some time off. And that will be true, technically, in the same way it's technically true that a lake is wet. Here's what you understand within the first 72 hours that most people don't understand until it's too late, if they understand it at all. Visibility is not a neutral fact about money. Visibility is a cost, ongoing, compounding, and almost nobody prices it correctly because almost nobody experiences it before the money arrives. You'd assumed your whole life that if you ever became rich, the hard part would be earning it. Nobody warned you that the actual hard part, the part with no clean solution, is deciding who gets to know, and living with the architecture of secrecy once you've built it. Because architecture once built has weight. It requires maintenance. It requires you to remember which version of your life you've told to which person, and to never let those versions collide in a room. Your business partner, Desmond, took the opposite approach. Same acquisition, same wire transfer, roughly the same number landing in his account within hours of yours. He told everyone. He told his parents the exact figure, before taxes and after. He told his college roommate. He posted, obliquely but not so obliquely that anyone missed it, about a life-changing week on a social platform where 400 people he hasn't spoken to in a decade could see it and draw their own conclusions. Within a month, Desmond had loaned $80,000 to his brother-in-law. for a restaurant that would fail within 14 months. Within 3 months, he'd fielded 11 separate requests for investment, 6 requests for loans, framed as investments, and 1 uncomfortable conversation with his mother about whether he'd be willing to buy the house next door to hers, so the family could finally all be close. He said yes to some of it. He said no to some of it. Every no cost him something. A small fracture in a relationship that had been, up until that point, uncomplicated by money. You watch this happen to Desmond over the following 2 years, mostly from a distance, and it confirms something you'd only suspected the moment the wire cleared. Money doesn't just change what you can do. It changes how everyone around you relates to you. And once that shift happens, you cannot fully undo it, even if you eventually give all the money away. You, meanwhile, are living in the same apartment for another 11 months after the sale, driving the same car, taking the same small vacations you'd have taken anyway, because the point was never austerity for its own sake. The point was that nothing visible should change fast enough for anyone to notice a pattern. You do change some things, privately, invisibly. You max out retirement accounts nobody's watching. You buy a small rental property in a different state, under an LLC, that generates income nobody in your life has any reason to ask about. You start working with a financial advisor who never once meets you in person in your home city, always in a conference room 3 states away, and who refers to your accounts by number in emails rather than by name, a habit you didn't request but came to appreciate. 2 years in, your mother mentions during a phone call that she's worried about retirement, that your father's pension isn't going to stretch the way they'd planned. You could fix this in an afternoon. You could transfer enough money to erase the worry permanently without denting your own position in any meaningful way. You don't do it in an afternoon. You wait 3 weeks. And then you tell her you've been doing well and want to help with a specific, bounded amount, framed as a gift tied to a specific purpose, not an ongoing arrangement, not an admission of what you actually have. She thanks you. She doesn't ask follow-up questions, because you've given her a number small enough not to invite them. The real number stays where it's always been, 3 states away, in an account with your name on it, in a form that requires a port order to easily find. Here's the part that surprises you most. 4 years out, long after the initial adjustment has become simply how you live. The secrecy, which felt at first like a burden, like a second job layered on top of an already complicated life, becomes something closer to relief. You watch Desmond, still fielding requests, still managing a version of himself that exists mostly in other people's expectations of what he owes them now that they know what he has. You realize that what you built in those first 72 hours wasn't just a legal structure. It was a boundary, the only kind of boundary that money can actually purchase. The ability to remain, in the eyes of everyone who's known you longest, exactly who you always were.